give us some perspective here. Again, the Martech stack is still driving all this activity, and I've been keen to hear what you have to say because I haven't got good answers. So come on up and
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Well, hello, everyone. Wow, what a day today has been. I don't know if you're anything like me, my brain is spinning. There's so much good information, but I will say there's something so refreshing about being in a room and in a space with other digital bank marketers. Now, just to help me kind of get a layout of the room, how many of us, and you can just raise your hand, are from a bank? Okay. And how many of us are from a credit union? Okay. And how many are from like an agency or a partner or a fintech? Okay, so there's a nice mix in the room. Well, today we're going to talk about one of my favorite things, Martech transformation. Just to kind of give you a little bit about me, I am the digital marketing manager at Mercantile Bank. I've been in digital banking, marketing, and fintech for the past 10 years. Before I was at Mercantile, I was at a fintech company called Autobooks. Have you guys heard of Autobooks before? It's an embedded payment solution within digital banking platforms. I love community, so that's super important to me. I also love to travel as well. Love to spend time with my wife and our two dogs, Finn and Geo. I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me there or also after in the happy hour. Also wanted to give you a little bit of an insight into Mercantile Bank, who we are. So we are the largest bank founded, headquartered, and serving in the state of Michigan. We're a relatively young bank. We were founded in 1997. We have over $6.2 billion in assets, and we have 40-plus locations, and we're currently growing. We're going through a merger right now, and so in 2027, we'll be over $7 billion. We have over 700 employees today. Now, in order to help explain where we're at today, I think it's important to take a step back and show you where we started at the beginning of this Martech transformation. How many of you would say that you're about to start a Martech transformation? You're about to invest in some marketing technology. Okay, so we have a few. And how many of you would say that you've already done the work and now you're using the tools now? It's been done previously. Okay, so we have a nice mix as well. Well, my hope for today is that regardless of where you're at in your Martech transformation journey, you'll be able to take a few things away that you can utilize the next time you go to invest in a marketing tech stack. So I will also say that these types of journeys, they range, right? There's different timelines. It depends on the size of your bank. It depends on your team. And no one journey is the same, and that's okay. For us, we started this journey for our Martech transformation in March of 2023. So a little over 2 years is when we have started to get to where we are today. When we first started this journey, we couldn't send an email in-house ourselves. It was outsourced. We couldn't personalize or automate any of our email marketing. And believe it or not, there were 78 steps for us to send a marketing email once we did start doing it ourselves after marketing and compliance had signed off. 78. That's the temperature I like outside, not the number of steps I like in an email. Was not efficient. Also, our website, there's a lot going on there. It was difficult for us to manage and maintain, which translated to us not being able to support our internal business units easily. There was a real lack of integration with other systems, such as our forms and our social media channels, for example. And what it did was it created a lot of silos, a lot of guessing, and we were very data rich and insight poor. Now, this is actual screenshot of the beginning of our procedure for email to actually start to understand how difficult the process was. And so one thing I would really encourage you is if you don't have procedures actually written out for your different marketing technology, I recommend you do that. Because for us, we knew the process was difficult, we just didn't know how difficult. When we actually wrote it down and we saw that there were 78 steps, that then gave us the ammunition for us when we went to our senior leadership team to actually say, there's 78 steps. This is not efficient. So I encourage you to write down your processes so that way you can actually see how inefficient something is or isn't. Now, once you've identified that there's some issues possibly with the way that your tech stack is working, next is to identify a solution and go to the market. For us, what we do at Mercantile is when we go to approach a marketing tech investment, we actually create a rubric. What are we looking for when we go to it? We know that we want to make something better, but what does better mean? Let's actually write all of our entire wish list down when we're looking at a solution, knowing that every solution isn't always perfect. In fact, most of them you won't find one that's perfect, but what you can find is one that checks most of your boxes. And so here, you'll also see that is a current screenshot of just one of the ways that we've done that is we've actually identified apples to apples when we look at vendors. Where are the gaps? How do they stack up amongst one another, knowing that not one solution is perfect? So define those ideal features and functionality. Conduct research. Reach out to your peers. Reach out to people you know beyond the industry that you're in. Schedule the demos. Now, one thing I really want to draw attention to is engaging your key stakeholders internally. I've worked at a few other banks, and one of the things I've noticed is that sometimes marketing will invest in a technology and a solution, but then when it comes time for us to actually start utilizing it, we didn't always bring in the right stakeholders. And now we can't use it to the fullest extent because of roadblocks that we could have avoided had we brought in our team and brought in our stakeholders to actually evaluate it alongside of you. There's pros and cons to that, but that's what I've found so far. Now, typically what we do after that is we request quotes and we negotiate the terms. You can always negotiate the terms, I found. And then perform the vendor due diligence. I actually think this one is very important as well, because what I have found is that it's very, very important for us, especially in 2025, to understand how our partners are leveraging, how they're storing, where they're putting our customer data, because that is our most important asset that we have. And the most fun part, in my opinion, is planning the implementation and the go-to-market strategy. I will say for us, and this isn't necessarily a commercial in any way, I don't get a referral for this in any way, but we ended up going with HubSpot for our marketing automation platform. I will also say that HubSpot was the best for us and what we were looking for, so going back to what those needs were, what those gaps were. It might not be for your financial institution, and that's okay. But I think it goes back to identifying what are the needs that you have from a Martech stack standpoint. Next is making the case. A lot of times, these are not small investments for our banks or credit unions, our companies to make. In fact, they're quite costly. But coming with the right case, with the right data, I have found is easier to get it approved to start the investment. So what I would recommend when you get to this point in your process, and what we did, is we actually built a case for why the bank needed to invest in this solution. In order to do that, you have to look at all the other vendors that you're using from a marketing technology standpoint, assess the cost relative to the outcomes they're giving you, and build a value-driven business case with a cost analysis. Highlight the vendor consolidation opportunities. And what I mean by that is, for us, we had a form vendor, we had a social media vendor, we had an email vendor, we had a landing page and blog vendor, we had a website vendor. For us, we were able to consolidate with HubSpot all of those vendors into one vendor that actually saves us a lot of money per year. So I think it's really important for you to understand how much you're actually spending on your marketing technology relative to the investment that you're looking to make. And what I would also call out is that it's important to make forecasts with that. So a lot of times, and what we did when we made the case to our senior leadership team was, this is the cost in year one, which you can see is most expensive because you have the previous vendors and you have the vendor that you're taking on. But in years 2, 3, 4, and 5, the costs go down. And that's important for your senior leadership team to see. Another thing that I would also draw attention to is that what we found in doing research is that for every dollar spent on marketing automation, you get $5.44 back in return on investment. When you know those types of metrics, you can put it into an equation that allows you to forecast easier for your senior leadership team. One thing I've also found is that when you go to your senior leadership team, talk their language. They love to see forecasts. They love to see what you think this investment will generate in terms of outcome. And if you can back it up with the data that you're seeing, the research that you've done, the stakeholders you've brought in, it makes it much, much easier. And next, and like I mentioned, my favorite part of the process is defining what your go-to-market strategy is. For us, this also included a brand new website. And so, has anyone here done a brand new website on a completely different platform before? It's a lot of work, a lot of coffee during that process. And so it was a very long process. And like I mentioned, to go back, the process started in March of 2023, but we didn't even sign the contract until the end of 2023. And we didn't get to work until January of 2024. So when you actually zoom out, it can take a long time, and sometimes it doesn't feel like you're making as much of progress, but when you actually take a look back, in 2 years, we've been able to make a huge impact in our operations, in our efficiency, and also on creating tailored digital experiences for our customers, which is really fun. And so when we actually got to a point earlier this year where we were ready to launch our brand new website, we got to come up with that go-to-market strategy. What did that look like? And so for us, and one thing I would draw attention to that I think is very important is, in addition to your external go-to-market strategy, what is your internal go-to-market strategy? And especially with a website, how are your staff members engaging with that site? You know, they say you can't trust a chef that doesn't eat their own cooking. Your staff members need to know when they're out selling and talking about your products and services, where they're located on the site, how they're engaging with it. And so we came up with that go-to-market plan internally, where we actually launched our website internally months before the customer-facing launch. It allowed them to provide feedback. We did a scavenger hunt where people actually forced them to get in there and click around on the site, give feedback, because it was so much different. Craft the clear messaging. Align cross-functionally. So one of the things that we did when we launched our site specifically as part of this Martech overhaul was we actually launched a website launch support team and brought other people into the conversation. What did that look like? We brought in all the leaders of our customer-facing teams, so that way they were aware and they could communicate immediately if something was going wrong at the launch, if they're getting calls saying that something is broken. Because if you've ever done a bank website, you'll know that the website is the main hub, and I look at it as the bridge to digital banking, to bill pay, to all these other systems. And when you change that overnight, sometimes things break. And you need to know immediately so that way you can get your customers access to the tools they need. So we actually formed a website launch support team so that way when people are calling into our Treasury contact center, they're then notifying us immediately so we can look into it ASAP. Develop the launch timeline. What's your plan? And what's your contingency plan? I can't underscore that one enough. Especially if you're launching a website, what happens when the website goes down when you're launching it? If it goes down, how do you react immediately? In coming up with those scenarios and being ready with the communication already prepped before you even launch the website. Before we launched our website, we had a plan for how we would communicate that the website was down. We had the apology written already. In the event, not that we weren't confident in our teams, we were very confident in the work that we had done to prep, but we always had the plan. Because for us, the website couldn't go down. And so I think as you look at Martech investments for your bank or financial institution, keep in mind that things could go down, things could go bad, and instead of having to react, be proactive and have those types of plans already in place and hope you never have to use them. But if it happens, then you are able to mitigate any negative customer experiences. And then we also just set KPIs and success metrics for what does that look like when we invested into our marketing technology stack? What was it going to look like to activate customers with our marketing? And then what does that look like to monitor the performance and optimize post-launch? Now I get to where we are today. And just when I think we have a good handle on things, then AI is starting to change everything. But that's okay, because I'm really excited for where we are today. Today we have one system that works for us in HubSpot. That one system is powering many things. It's powering our website and our landing pages. It's powering our email, our forms. Now our sales and service hub or service teams are starting to get onto the platform. And when we think about how that can be impactful, let's say there's a service ticket for one of our business customers that's logged in HubSpot. We can then follow up with, how did we do? Give us some feedback automatically. Before we couldn't do those types of things because nothing talked to one another. That makes it very difficult. In our initial system that we had, one of the issues that we had was we couldn't get access to data. We're a bank, we have all this data, we have a data warehouse, we couldn't get it into our marketing system. We had, I want to say it was around 10 data points that we could personalize in an email when we started this journey in 2023. Now it's limitless because of the data that we're bringing in to our system. And because we engaged our data teams, our IT teams, and our digital banking teams at the onset of us exploring, we build it with the end in mind. And so that's one thing I would encourage you if you're looking to investing in a Martech stack is looking at what do you hope to do, even if it's just a dream, because you build it with the end in mind. And what I mean by that is for us, we built our data imports coming in that has all the data that we wanted in the future. Has the products and services that they have or don't have. It has their if they have a home equity. Do they have a debit card? Are they enrolled in the various services within online banking? And then the fun stuff starts to happen. When we're bringing those data points in, we can then build those into workflows. And so what that looks like is, let's say a customer, we're bringing in the date account opened into our marketing tech stack because we knew that that was something we wanted to do. Now, we can send an onboarding email that welcomes them to the bank. Then we can delay a couple days and invite them to enroll in online banking. But if the data tells us that they're already enrolled, we don't want to send that. Everyone's inbox is cluttered enough already. We want it to be meaningful and impactful when they get a message from us. So investing in the right technology that's right for your financial institution helps you create those tailored digital experiences. The gentleman before me mentioned it, and it was something that I had planned to say as well, but a customer's most recent engagement is their next expectation. And when we think about like the Amazons and all these other solutions out there, that's where the expectation art continuously rises. And so for us, it was very important as we looked into our Martech overhaul, how can we provide a similar experience with the banking relationship? What can we do? How can we personalize the website pages that they've been on based on the data that we see? How can we see that they're engaging with maybe our personal checking page and they don't have that product, so maybe we follow up with an email. Maybe we send an email automatically to the branch manager that's assigned in the data and say, hey, maybe you should call this client and just check in on them. Investing in the right technology has allowed us to do those types of things. So that's been really fun. It also enables us to serve better. Like I mentioned, now we're importing data from all of our bank sources beyond just our core. So that's our credit card data, that's our debit card data, that is our commercial data and the different systems, the different data points that we have access to within that. And we're partnering with our data analytics team to actually utilize robotic process automation to do those imports for us every day. What's happening is when that data comes in, it then triggers campaigns to happen after that based on data points is changing. Automatically opting customers out if they've closed their accounts. Those types of things that from a digital marketing operations perspective help us to run better and help us to ensure that the right people are getting the right messaging based on the data that we see. Like I mentioned earlier, it helps us to blend digital touch points and intent signals into outreach. The benefit of having a system that's connected, at least as much as possible, is that you can use them to work together easily. I think that's the key there, is easily. Because a lot of times, nothing talks to one another. And then you have to request this report internally and then import that into that system. And we have some of that still too, but the benefit of having it together helps us serve them better. The other thing I want to draw attention to is it helps us support business units better and more efficiently. So at Mercantile, we think of ourselves on the marketing department as an in-house agency, where we're part of the bank, but we have two sets of clients. We have our actual external clients, and then we have our internal clients. How we serve them matters through these digital marketing outreaches. And those clients are typically the department heads that we'll be working with to develop campaign strategy for, dependent on what their needs are within their line of business. And so I will say, when you're in a Martech stack overhaul, there's also a culture shift in there too. Because the business unit that never wanted to reach out to you for support because they didn't like how long it would take, they didn't maybe like what we could do for them, now we have to re-educate them that now we have a whole nother set of tools that we can use to support their line of business. And that is a very big culture shift. It's also, there's a speed component there too. For our website, initially, it would take us weeks to build a landing page. Not because we didn't want to build it faster, but because that's how difficult the process was. Now we can build a landing page for a targeted campaign that maybe our mortgage team wants to do or something like that in probably 2 hours, because we have invested in the right tools that enabled us to help them better. So that changes the way that they reach out to us. That changes the volume of requests to us, because now they've grown accustomed to us being able to help support them, help generate leads for them, and be able to track it back to the source. So that's something that has really helped us and enabled us to serve just more efficiently. It's also helped us develop personalized website, email, and ad experiences at scale. So it's personalization at scale, whereas before we couldn't do that. And so this is just a really fun example of something we launched this year, which seemed like something small, but for us and where we were at in our journey, we just didn't have the technology in place to be able to do something like this, is developing just a happy birthday email. Something really simple. It's nothing crazy, but this is one of our most engaged with emails. About a 60% open rate. Comes on the morning of their birthday. We're not selling them anything, but we're just letting them know that we're thinking of them. And you would also be surprised how many people actually respond to our corporate email and just say thank you. Thank you for thinking of me, or like something like that. So it's kind of fun. For us, we're a community bank, so that's what we're all about. Now, we think about results. By investing in the right marketing technology stack, we have improved open rates. We have higher click-through rates. We have intentional website traffic. Now, just with some of the AI conversations that we've had today, traffic is down, and that's because AI is changing the funnel. It's different now. It's not a funnel anymore. So when we get someone to our site, the intent is a little bit different. And so if we can deliver a digital marketing touch point to our customers, based on what we can see in the data, based on how they're engaging with us, and get them to our site in a more meaningful interaction, that's what we're going to do. It's a quality over quantity. Like I mentioned, it's also the quicker turnaround times. We can support our teams so much better. Another thing is that with our new website, we were recently, 2 weeks ago, at the ABA conference in New Orleans and recognized with a Brand Slam Award for our new website that we're able to build so much quicker on HubSpot. Thank you. And that was all I had. So we might get out a little early tonight, but I think that would probably be okay. Are there any questions? Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, how do we forecast our budget? And I would say for us, it ultimately goes back to developing the relationships with our senior strategy team. That's approving the budgets a lot of times. But it's also coming up with that business case. Because I think, and it's been alluded to earlier, a lot of times marketing is just kind of looked at as like, hey, I need this flyer, or they think we play on Facebook all day, or something like that, right? So when you can go back to your senior strategy team with a thoughtful business case, I have found that actually ties numbers to outcomes based on what you have researched. That has typically aided in them being like, yeah, absolutely, we need that, because we have put numbers and tried to speak their language, whereas typically marketing and banking that I've found so far hasn't always been like that. And so just tying numbers and assigning values and giving thoughtful approaches to how you came up with those, I have found that that will typically get the investment approved. Not necessarily, because I actually think that the priorities of the bank as a whole couldn't be achieved unless we made this investment. And I think that's something important to note too, is that you say that deposits, for example, might be a top priority, but we can't support you in that today, the way the technology is set. So we have to invest in the right technology to help us help you, kind of thing, right? Help us get the tools that help you meet your strategic goals as a bank. That's a great question.
Would you mind sharing with us your productivity software that your team uses?
Productivity. So we switched to Asana. Part of our transformation that wasn't necessarily on the Martech side, but it was absolutely adjacent to this, was 2 years ago, there was no way for our marketing team to see who was working on what. It was all email. There was one Excel document that multiple people couldn't access at the same time that had everyone's list on it. There's a lot of sticky notes too. So moving to something like Asana has enabled us also to be able to see insight into the workload, and also be able to go back to those business units now, because I can say, mortgage, for example, you say that we're not supporting you, but I can see that 20% of our projects year to date have been in support of mortgage. So again, building it with the end in mind, when we built up Asana, we built it with fields that we put in status, and we have a marketing project manager who does a lot of that. They then will go in and add those fields to it so we can see exactly where our time is being spent. And it's not that we're counting hours or anything like that, but more project, because as we know in marketing, not all projects are created equal. So, but that has really helped us be able to show our business units numbers of what we're doing to support them. That was a great question. Any other questions? Oh. Yeah, that was a great question. So we considered a variety of ones. We looked at some very bank specific ones, which I always think is a good part of the exercise. We also looked at Salesforce. We looked at Marketo. We looked at a couple of the big ones. And what we found was that they would check some boxes, but they weren't as good as some of the others. And I think that if the PowerPoint can be downloaded in the app, one of the things you'll see is like the rubric that we look at, that we actually build, is beyond just our customer facing. It's how good a support do we get as clients when we have questions, when our website is down. That's a very important piece of it. How easy is the UI? Is there a knowledge base? Is there a community that I can bounce ideas off of too? Beyond just what can we do for the customer, how are we enabled to serve them better? And so I think that's really important too, is to look at it beyond just the customer side of it, is actually how am I going to be able to problem solve, to troubleshoot? Am I going to have to call and put a ticket in, or is there an emergency line? Do I have a customer support manager? Those types of things are really important to consider when you're making a Martech stack, is the support that you will receive. So that was a great question too. Awesome. Well, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I'll also be at the happy hour as well. So thank you so much for letting me be here, and it was nice to meet you guys. Hope you have a great day tomorrow, too.
Great job.
So,
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. That was a great first day. So I have some good news. One, happy hour started. Two, as a special treat, the Cubs game is on next door. It's been on for a couple hours now, but I haven't been able to tell you out of deference to our friends here. I don't want to overweight what a great program we have. It's going to start again tomorrow at 8:45. I thought we had a really great program in terms of starting to color in this modern digital marketing mix. We talked about the new economies of scale of growth, technology, data, and content. A lot about content in terms of videos, storytellings, messaging, and personalization. We're starting to color in the Martech stack. I thought that was a wonderful presentation. And we're talking a lot about data and data-driven demand gen. We have a really nice panel tomorrow on that I'm excited about. We talked about the digital customer experience, enabling our own channels. Tomorrow we'll be talking about business brand partnerships and communities, starting to color in the shared media side of the metrics, the mix, and a lot of stuff about video, which is a critically important channel, both in terms of customer behavior, but also activating some of these new channels like our out-of-home network friends. I don't want to bore you anymore. I will meet you over at the Cubs game next door, or the Brewers game, whatever flavor you like.